When Pastor Ruth asked me to talk about my faith journey, I remembered what several people in the congregation had told me. You can't say no to Pastor Ruth. So here I am. I grew up on a large family farm in upstate New York, near my dad's family. Everyone worked in the fields, and on Sunday we had dinner at my grandparents', usually chicken killed the day before. My parents took my brother and me to Sunday school every Sunday, and on occasion, Mom would attend church. We sang in the youth choir and had several years of perfect Sunday school attendance. It was part of our life. My mother's grandfather was a Baptist minister, and my mom's mother played the organ in the Methodist church. My grandfather died at an early age, so Grandma would come to visit and stay several days. If she was there on a weekend, she made sure we observed Sunday as a day of rest, other than the requisite farm chores. She played hymns on the piano, and we would sing along. So faith was part of my youth. Over the years, I attended church on a fairly regular basis. I took my children to Sunday school and even taught for a couple of years. I didn't think much about faith, but it was there. Then life happened. I was divorced with 2 young children, ultimately remarried, had a 3rd child, went back to college, graduated, got a job teaching. Life was good, and church was set aside. Then, in 1998, my life took a downward turn. My 84-year-old father, who was never sick, had 2 heart attacks, and my 29-year-old daughter had brain surgery. Successful, I should add. My mother retired and started drinking, and I was suddenly in charge of it all. My peaceful, normal life was in chaos. Initially, I was fine, because I had always been strong, and I thought it was all temporary. That turned out not to be the case, and I started to feel overwhelmed. I thought God was testing me to see just how strong I was. Little by little, things got worse. Mom was hospitalized twice and started to show signs of dementia. Dad was diagnosed with macular degeneration and was extremely hard of hearing, which caused him to become reclusive, and he was also demonstrating memory loss. It was clear they needed help. We were lucky to find some help during the day who were dependable and trustworthy. I monitored it all from 3 hours away and had a bag packed ready to go at all times. I often went for 2 days and stayed 2 weeks. There were nights I slept in a chair so that I could be aware when one or both of them got up. During those nights, I started to call upon God to help me make the right decisions for these 2 people who had cared for me and now I had to care for. And the decisions were hard ones. In 2006, Mom was hospitalized for several days. I don't remember the reason, but when she was about to be released, I was told she either had to go into rehab or have someone at home who could help her. I had already been away from my job for about 3 weeks. After a family conference with my husband and adult children, we made the decision to move Mom and Dad in with us. At least I didn't make this decision alone. And that is not to say it wasn't a difficult one, and it was not popular with Dad. The day of the move, and I can see him sitting there today, Dad sat at the kitchen table in his pajamas and announced he was not going. He calmly drank his coffee and ate his toast. I'm not sure to this day how we finally convinced him to get in the car, but he did. We moved twin beds to the living room, hung curtains at the doors, put up railings so they could manage the steps from the family room to the dining room. I put a baby monitor in their room so I could be sure that they were safe and not confused by their new surroundings. They were used to sleeping in a queen bed, and Dad kept asking Mom where she was. Ultimately, she climbed into the twin bed with him. Next day, we tied the two beds together, made them up as a king bed. I'm sure I must have called upon God a few times over the next few weeks. This was not an easy solution. Daily, Dad would ask Mom why they were with us. He could see their car, which I had driven to bring them to Massachusetts, in my driveway, and tell Mom, if we could just get to Becket, I could get us home. I never drive the Mass Pike without thinking of Dad and smiling when I see the sign for Becket, a small town in the Berkshires. At the end of 6 weeks, I was able to find more help for them in their home in New York, so we drove them back. For almost a year and a half, they were able to remain in their own home, ultimately with 24/7 help. Mom's memory issues deteriorated, and Dad's physical health declined, along with his memory. Time for another decision. I remember clearly the night I told my parents that we were moving them to an assisted living facility. Two people who had never traveled farther away than Pennsylvania and had lived in the same house for 65 years were now going to live among strangers, and I was the one doing it to them. We chose a place in Albany, near where they had lived and where friends could visit. I would make the 3-hour trip once a month. Their friends did visit, and for a short time, it seemed it was okay. Then, Dad got sick and passed away after only 2 months, and it made sense to move Mom closer to my family. There was more chaos for this poor woman who was now diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She called me daily, yelling at me and telling me what a bad daughter I was. I got so I hated for the phone to ring. One day, I stood in the middle of my kitchen crying and said out loud, "I can't do this anymore." God must have been listening, because suddenly I felt he wasn't testing me, but he was leading me to help to make the right decisions, and he was standing right beside me. Somehow he let me know that once the decision was made, don't look back. He was with me all the way. During this time, I came to the church on the Cape and was surrounded by the love and support of this wonderful community. You all know what I mean. I believe God led me here at a time when he knew I needed strength beyond my own. Maybe he wanted me to know the pain before I could find his peace. My mom died the day after Mother's Day this year. I had been fortunate to not have experienced death firsthand. My grandparents died at an old age after I had left home. Dad died in a nursing home in New York in 2008. So when the hospice nurse called at 7 a.m. to say, "Your mom is dying, you need to come," I had no idea how I would handle it. I was only 10 minutes away, having stayed in Massachusetts for several days. As sad as I was, I cannot express the peace I felt as I watched my 90-year-old mother take her last breath. A weight was lifted when I knew Mom was in God's hands, and I knew God had saved her a special place next to Dad. Once again, my life seems peaceful and normal, if there is such a thing, but I know that can change overnight. I also know that whatever happens, God will guide me through it, and he will stay with me. Thank you.